So we're going to discuss in this training session working with Schedule C clients, and it's a really great market right now for Schedule C. More and more people are self-employed, and self-employed people were always confused about taxes, and so we're working here with Tia to make a nice, easy process. When you get a call, Tia, to feel confident and to make that client's experience nice and easy and simple, and that they know what they need, is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to create the opportunity for you to actually have those Schedule C clients be very profitable. Which if you don't give Schedule C people like a straight line to kind of get the job done, so to speak, it becomes something that gets very drawn out and takes up a lot of your time. So I want to go through in this training just to give you an idea of a way that I see to make your life a little bit easier. And so let's say right now, Tia, if you get a call from, you said you were getting some calls from like Hairstylists. Is that right? Oh, looks like you're offline. Okay, so let's say you, can you hear me, Tia? So when you get a call from a Schedule C or self-employed person, anybody that has a 1099, first thing that they always have a question, which essentially is like, what do I need to bring? And so Latia was talking about how some of these hairstylists were calling her business and saying, I'm going to bring all my receipts, from the year. And that's a little bit of something it's not really needed. It's not really what you need to do the tax return. And so being able to shape that interaction in an efficient way is going to be a real big deal for you being able to have profitable relationships with those Schedule C clients. So somebody gets a call and they're wondering what they need to bring. I want to show you a couple of resources that we give you as part of this program to help you navigate that. So this is actually what you need in order to fill out a Schedule C. So if someone's self-employed, you need to have the income that they made. This 1099-K is a form that if the person accepts credit cards, credit or debit, the 1099-K is a form that's sent from the merchant processor, and this is relatively new over the past couple of years. Obviously, they also have cash and checks that they get. They could have a number of different ways that they get paid. They could have 1099s or not. Sometimes as hairstylists, they're accepting cash directly from the customer. So what you need in terms of to fill out a Schedule C is you need their total income for the year. And the reason that we use this form here, and it's a good idea for you to use a form like this, and you can feel free to use this one, is you can come up here and just rebrand it with your own logo, maybe put your contact information on there. You want to get the information from the client. So sometimes Schedule C people, they want to put you as a tax preparer in a position of, just plug in kind of like whatever number is going to work. And that's not really ideal. You can get into a lot of problems with that. So you essentially intake the income information. Hey, how much did you make for the year? And then your expenses. And this is essentially your Schedule C. You're going to use this document to fill out the Schedule C. Now, if someone is, just isn't going to do this, you can certainly help them with that. Set up like a quick meeting or and help them kind of fill this out, or just invite them into the office and you can fill out the Schedule C directly. But in terms of what you need, like what do you need from the client to fill out a Schedule C, you don't need all their receipts. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for the total of those receipts into each category of expense. And that's what you need to fill out the tax return. So it's important to kind of tell the person what you need as opposed to they just bring in a shoebox of receipts. That's not really what you're looking for primarily. If that's the only way to get to these numbers, then hey, that's okay, but you can be able to charge them a little bit more for doing that extra work. And just to clearly communicate with the client at the beginning, hey, this is what I need from you. I need some kind of a profit and loss statement. And this is a very simple profit and loss that we made just to keep it simple for that person. Keeping it simple for the Schedule C filer is a really big deal because as self-employed people, we're always busy doing our actual business. And so the easier that you make it to do the taxes is going to be the better. So if someone says, what do I need? This is the document that you can use and say, this is what we need. Does it make sense to you? Do you need help with it? You know, how can I help you to get this filled out, because this is what I actually need. Okay, that's number one. The second resource that we have for you, which is also very helpful, is people usually don't know, especially if they're newly self-employed, they don't know what's deductible. What's a deductible expense? So on Schedule C, a deductible expense is any expense that's ordinary and necessary to your business. And necessary doesn't mean necessary. It's kind of a tax term. Necessary means helpful or appropriate. So based on the type of work that you do, you know, your deductions will obviously vary. If you're a trucker, you're going to have different deductions than if you're a hairstylist, than if you're a real estate agent, than if you're a direct sales, door-to-door salesperson. So what we've done is, and we give you as part of this program, is a list of deductions based on job type. And these are actually, you can edit these as well to put, say, your logo and to put your address. These are actually great for marketing. So you could stop by, like say you notice that you're getting calls from hairstylists. Hairstylists will all, like many people that have the same type of job, is they generally tend to go to the same tax person because they all talk amongst each other, and when they find somebody good, they're very active at referring because they're kind of all in the you know, in the salon. They're all together and they want to know, like, hey, who's doing the best job for you, who has good service. So this is a great marketing thing to say, hey, I've gotten 2 clients from this particular salon. Let me stop by and drop off this, you know, and say, hey, you know, you guys may be wondering, I know it's tax season, you may be wondering what's deductible. Here's a list of deductions that we make for our clients, and you know, here's my contact information. If we can help you in any way, give us a call. Okay, so that's a great marketing thing too. When you're actually getting the call from the person, again, in just the interest of making it easy for the person, so you're saying you need them to fill out this profit and loss statement, and you can notice on here that there's some spots for other expenses here. And so they're probably wondering, like, hey, what else is deductible? So you send them this originally, and then you say, you know what, another resource that we offer is we actually have a customized list of deductions based on hairstylists. So this might give you some ideas of your expense categories, and that's also very helpful to the person. They could just write down here the amount that they spent for the year, and again, this will flow right into your Schedule C. So biggest thing when you get those calls from self-employed people is making it easy and making it clear for them as to what they need, because they're, like I said, they're busy. We're busy. I'm self-employed. You're self-employed too. We're busy doing our actual work, you know, taking care of the clients and running our business and all. And that's really what we want to do. And so when there's taxes and it's tax season and we got to do like the bookkeeping and accounting and all that, you got to, the more you make it easy and clear for me as a client, the more I'm going to enjoy working with you. And so these 2 tools right here is going to help you get out of the spot of not being able to communicate clearly what's needed to the client, because the client doesn't know. They're just going to say, should I just bring in all my receipts? Like, what do I need? And so these will give you some ways to collect that information in an efficient way. And as we continue through this training session, we'll see how to actually input that information. But for now, very, very important the way you intake that client, not only for that client and their, you know, good experience, but for your good experience and for you to be able to deal with these Schedule C clients in a profitable way. And also in a way that protects yourself, right? So that you don't end up just plugging in whatever numbers into Schedule C, but you get some actual information from the client, because that's where the information should be coming from. All right, and we'll pick up with the actual Schedule C momentarily. All right, so once you have the information you need from the Schedule C client, or at least you're on the way to having that, because a lot of times you do need to work through it with the person. But once you have a picture of, what's their income, what's their total income, and you start to build out the deductions, or if you just want to do this directly in the software, we're going to pick up now with doing an actual Schedule C in the Pronto tax systems software. So you're going to go in, add a new client. And like I said at the beginning of this training, the more that you get to where you have this ahead of time, and even if you get this digitally and it's sent to you ahead of time, the easier your life's going to be, and also it's going to be more convenient for the client. So we'll just go ahead and build out a quick file, and we're going to do a tax return for a hairstylist. And let's say Sandra Jones. Okay, hairstylist. She's not a dependent. You always want to get, whenever possible, get this cell phone number, because the program, the Pronto Tax Systems program, has some nice features to be able to send text messages to the person, to the client. Email is also a great piece of data to have. So we always want to pick those up. You need to put in the cell phone carrier if you want to be able to send them a text message. And it has this little choices, so you can pick out, okay, they're on AT&T. And this is what enables the program to send them a text message. So that's actually pretty cool. You can put in preferred contact, preferred language if they prefer Spanish or something like that. We don't need, in this case, the ID. And let's say it's let's just keep it simple. We're just going to focus on Schedule C in this training. We'll leave off like dependents and stuff like that, and just to be able to figure out the Schedule C. So in this software version, you need to be able to add forms based on what you need. So you can go here and you go to form, add form. Oh, must enter filing status. Filing status, let's say it's 1, single. Okay, so add form. We want to find Schedule C, because we know that's what we need to file. Profit or loss from business. Okay, and so that's when we have this document here is going to show us essentially most of the information, not all the information, but it's going to give us definitely a good start towards filling out the Schedule C. And you should be able to kind of pull a lot of these numbers directly in to your software. So you want to put what type of work the person does. This business code, it's called a NAICS code. And what that means is each type of business has a code. So you could say NAICS code hair salon, let's say. Okay, and we can pull it right from there. Looks like it's 812112. 812112. Okay, beauty salons. Now, what does the IRS use this information for? Is they use it to have averages of, say, income and deductions and a lot of other data that's going to be compared against what you have on Schedule C. So you kind of want to get familiar with some of those red flags, so to speak, because that is something that the IRS will look at on Schedule C. There's much more risk of audit on a Schedule C than, say, on a regular wage earner tax return. And especially the IRS is they're not dumb, so they know that hairstylists, get a lot of cash earnings a lot of times. And so that's also a piece of the puzzle is whether the person is reporting all their income. And that's another thing why you want to give the person ahead of time, hey, this is your income and it's coming from you, and we're retaining a record of how we got that information. So this is a big thing for you as a professional to be able to have a good process on that. Counting method with the small businesses is going to be, 99.9% of the time is going to be cash method of accounting. If they had a different business name, like let's say this lady has a business name of Sandra Jones Beauty Salon, you could put that in there. If no business name, leave it blank. If they have an employer ID number different than their social, same thing, you'd put that in here. If not, then leave it blank. And also for business address, if you leave this blank on Schedule C, it will use the taxpayer's home address. So if they have a different office or something like that, you want to put that address in there and it'll show up on Schedule C. Counting method, like I said, is almost always cash. Did you participate in the business? That's going to be yes. If you started the business, there's a checkbox for new business, first year. And this is something here that they added a few years ago. Did you make any payments that would require you to file Form 1099? So say, for instance, that Sandra has other hairstylists and she's paying them $600 or more during the year. She's supposed to be filing 1099s to those people. So this asks you if that was done or not. And that's something that if someone's running like an operation where they're paying subcontractors, you have to kind of be aware of those requirements. I've gotten really a lot stricter on that. So it's something to advise your clients about. There's some other inputs here that are, fairly rare. We don't want to get too deep into kind of the unusual stuff. In this training is going to be more of a how to fill out a Schedule C training. But you can see here kind of all the different nuances that come into the Schedule C or can come into the Schedule C. But just in the interest of keeping it simple, you can see here, okay, here's your income. And this is going to match up, hopefully as much as possible with the data that you already collected here. And it's even following the same format. So that's how we have it laid out for you guys to make it nice and easy for the client, but also for you. So total sales, let's say it's, 25,655. Okay, so that's total sales. Cost of goods sold, let's say for a hairstylist, there could be cost of goods sold could be from buying supplies. It could be from even paying other hairstylists to be able to make this money here. So other people were maybe cutting the hair, dyeing the hair. That could be considered cost of goods sold. A lot of service businesses like this, you don't really need to get too much into cost of goods sold. There may not even be cost of goods sold, say for like an IT person or just a pure service business. You can just fill out the expenses. So a big thing on Schedule C is you're going to have income minus expenses, and then whatever the net income is, that's going to be the taxable amount. So certainly your knowledge of deductions and what's deductible is going to be a big part of filling out this form in the best interest of your client. And that's where this comes in here. You did some work ahead of time. Hey, these are, the expenses. And like I said, we provide you too with this kind of customized list. So you want to look and work for the client to get them as many deductions as possible that are legitimate. And then you essentially just fill it out from there. So say the client's sitting in front of you and maybe you got some data from them ahead of time, or they brought in a list, or they even brought in their receipts, and you kind of added them up by category for the year. And you start working through the Schedule C. Your process is essentially to enter all the data that they have, that they have on hand, that they've already given you, and then kind of probe and ask more questions about what other deductions might be available. That's really what people are looking for out of a tax preparer is, to let me know about things that I don't know about. You know, anybody can just fill in information that I already brought in, but a lot of your value is going to be from finding out things that they didn't think about. So let's say, you know, we'll just fill it out. Let's say that we have $600 in advertising. Car and truck expenses, we are going to look at that in a little bit more detail in a second here, because car and truck and home office are two of the tricky parts of filling out a Schedule C. So I'm just going to get in the easy stuff first, and we will touch on that in this training. So let's say commission and fees. Let's say that there's a salesperson that paid $500 last year. Maybe some contract labor, somebody coming in to clean the salon or clean the work area. Okay, depreciation, we're not really going to see that too much. You always want to ask if they have self-employed health insurance, or are they paying for their own health insurance? And you could plug that in right here if that's the case, if they have health insurance. Interest, what if they have interest that they're buying business supplies on their credit card and they're carrying a balance? There could be some interest deduction there. So let's say there's like $122 interest there. Legal, if they have, you know, formed an LLC, if they got some business advice from an attorney. Professional services would be a good one to put in right here. You could even have here the tax prep fee. So let's say they paid $400 last year to do their taxes. Office expense. Most Schedule C is not going to have a pension plan. Rent or lease. Let's say if they're renting a space. So hairstylists might rent, the common business structure there is each hairstylist would rent their own chair, or even for part of the day, or however that's worked out. So that could be a rental expense here. Let's say it's $200 a month, so $2,400. Repairs and maintenance, maybe there's a little bit on some equipment. Supplies will usually be a big thing for a hairstylist. Taxes and licenses, let's say like they have a little business license that they need to get. Travel is not going to be too much, and so travel and meals and entertainment is an example where whatever code you put in up here, right, is going to be, those are two deductions that are kind of viewed as frequently abused or incorrectly used, and so the IRS would run a computer program that would show, hey, if your meals and entertainment for this type of business are way above the average for that type of business, that would be the proverbial red flag. So meals and entertainment, you might have something where you know the person's taken some clients out to eat, or they take, say, even their staff out to eat. There could be some meals and entertainment expense there. Utilities, maybe they're paying something for their office space utilities. Okay, and you also have other expenses that can come into play. So that would be all the other things that you could grab from here, you know, that are maybe more specialized to their type of business, or things that you know, were unusual purchases. Maybe they bought like a software program, that kind of thing. But these are the standard categories, and there's always going to be other expenses that you can add on. Okay, and here's the list of where you would put other expenses. I believe it on this, yeah. So it calls for a worksheet here. This program, anytime that it's a grayed out box, that means that it's trying to pull data from another place. So if you see down here, this worksheets, that's where you would put in. So let's say software. Let's see, say the person, no, that's not right. Okay, let's see. Okay, I haven't used this software a whole lot, so I'm actually just getting to learn it myself. So pardon me, but let me see if I'll figure this out for you. There's always going to be, normally going to be, other expenses. The Schedule C is very common. So let me see what kind of worksheet we have here. Other expenses. Okay, I'm back. I just didn't want you to have to watch me fumbling around the software. So what you do here is there's a shortcut. You press Control W, and that will pull up any worksheet. So when you see these grayed out boxes, those are override boxes. So you don't want to put anything in these boxes. You want to put them in the form or the worksheet where it comes from. So we just fill out here, let's say they paid 180 bucks for some software, and what other type of expense might a hairstylist have? Maybe a seminar they attended, or some continuing education of some sort. What else might they have? So we can check here. Yeah, telephone. So let's say, cell phone, work percentage, work portion, and let's say that's like $12.55 for the year. Okay, so when you close this out here, it's going to plug into the other expenses section of Schedule C. So you can see here what's going on, right? You have your total income up here at the top of the form, and then you have your deductions, which you've gathered, based on the client's information that they gave you and that you guys discussed. So remember, when that client signs the tax return, especially with Schedule C, the best way to do it in terms of ethics and also protecting yourself as a professional is that they need to understand what deductions they're claiming. It's not you. You're not the one signing the tax return that you know that this is correct. You need to get on the same page with the client that, hey, here's the expenses that you're claiming, here's the income that you're claiming, and in order for it to be a valid signature when they sign the tax return. So you take income at the top of the form, Schedule C, and then minus off all the expenses. You're doing a lot of your value work here in the expenses area, telling them what's deductible, what about this, what about that, asking about trying to get the net income to be the lowest it can be in terms of minimizing the tax. So you can see right here, she had about $25,000 of gross income. Expenses were almost $11,000, so that leaves $15,000 of profit. We haven't addressed two common, sort of tricky deductions, which would be the car expense. So a lot of times you'll give someone a form like this, right? And it has auto expense on here, and the person doesn't really know kind of how to calculate that. They see a few different entries here. So this would be a common thing that you need to kind of counsel the client, provide some consulting as to how that is calculated. And so I can go here, and if I go to Control W, it's going to give me a worksheet. So I want to get to there we go. So there's two different ways to deduct car expense. You can either take your actual expenses, so your gas, your repairs, the depreciation on your vehicle, or you can take a standard mileage rate. Either way, you need to keep some records, and so as a professional, you need to be able to inform the client as to what those records are and should be. And so for that reason, especially with car expense, it's something that you want to be able to provide the client the information about what they should be keeping. You're not the auditor, so you're not somebody that you need to review all of their receipts and records, but certainly best practices would be to tell the person what they need. So I'm going to pull up another quick resource that you can do that we have for you guys as part of this program that will help you explain that to the client. So give me 1 second to do that. Okay, so right now we're inside our Tax Pro Toolkit, which you get as part of the program. And we're going to go into our tax prep resources. And let's find our deductions folder. And what we did for you guys is we have this document called the Be Careful deductions. And so home office and vehicle expense are certainly on here. And one of the reasons I put this in your guys' toolkit is because this makes a nice cut and paste into an email to the client. You know, because they may not know what the record keeping is. So you can just grab this, Control C, and send it to the client when you're right there with them. And it helps them for next year. It helps them for this year to know what those record keeping requirements are. Hey Tia, did you get back in?
Yes, I'm back in. I lost all connections, but I'm back in.
Okay, nice, no problem. Like I said, I'm recording this for you, so I'll send it over. And I think by the end of this, you'll have a good idea what's happening. So I was just talking about how in your toolkit there's some cut and paste ability in terms of
Hmm.
somebody has a question about like what do I need to keep for vehicle expense for receipts or whatnot for the IRS. We have this document where you can just go in and essentially cut and paste it into an email to the person. Hey, we discussed this during the tax prep appointment. I just want to give you some information about what those requirements are. And that
Okay.
helps the person just to kind of, have a resource to do what they need to do. And
Okay.
what we're doing here, Tia, is I'm actually building out a Schedule C and looking at the vehicle expenses
Hmm.
and actually still sort of learning this software myself. I've figured out some good stuff with it, but just bear with me a second. I'm going to figure out the car and truck expense because that's something that always comes up.
I know that's right.
Right? We don't
Okay.
really, yeah, we don't need to get into the lease inclusion and the finer points of that. But hopefully that's helpful to see, every Schedule C is going to have, 99% of the time is going to have some element of vehicle expense, and it's one of the deductions that people are kind of never sure about, like how to handle it, so they
Mhm.
look to you,
Exactly.
you know. So just like we went through in the video, which I hope was helpful, you start by pressing Control N,
Hmm.
and then that's where you get in the car information. And like I was talking about earlier in the video, Tia, which you'll be able to view,
Hmm.
is let me get out of this. Okay, just stop it, please. Leave me alone. Delete asset. Okay. Da, da, da. So in this program, anytime you see a gray box,
Hmm.
every tax program kind of handles things a little bit different, so there's always a learning curve. The best way to get beyond that is to like do practice returns. So get in there, and even sometimes you're doing a real return and you're learning. In this business, just we're always learning constantly. Anytime you have
Exactly.
a gray box here, Tia, that means that um, you shouldn't enter data directly into this box because there's some other source of where that data is supposed to be coming from.
Okay.
Okay, and so you can, whether it's like a worksheet, a lot of times in the bottom area here, there's be a worksheet or like a form link, and being able to get to that sub form, like let's say for instance for the business use of home. So we see here that there's a gray box here for business use of home because it's supposed to get from Form 8829, the business use of home form. That's where it's
Hmm.
actually supposed to be entered.
Okay.
So you want to go up here and find that form and go to 8829. Okay, and that's where you want to actually enter the data.
Okay.
So just as a big picture thing, whenever you see those gray boxes, it means that you need to find what's the actual form that that you need to put that into in order for it to show up here.
Okay.
Okay, and so what we have here is basically you'll be able to access to this too on the video. Income on the top of the form. You have some other information like what type of business it is, etc. And then income minus expenses is going to be your taxable income.
Okay.
When you're working in the program, Tia, and you want to see kind of like, which happens a lot with Schedule C, where am I now? How does the return look now? You can use this tax summary screen,
Okay.
and this will show you like, hey, here's my net income, standard
Okay.
deduction, personal exemption. Here's the self-employment tax. So you familiar with what self-employment tax is?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it's going to be 15.3% of whatever this is here,
This.
and it's Social Security and Medicare tax. So that's a lot of times for the person like that's say they're not making like a ton of net income on Schedule C. A lot of Schedule C filers, their net income won't be that high, so their income tax, like the income tax is not too big. It's $353, so it's not like a ton of money. But this is the one that kind of, people are a lot of Schedule C filers are kind of shocked at how much they owe on this one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there, she's coming out with 2,400 of tax right here, and so a lot of times the person's sitting here thinking, hey, I made 15 grand and I owe 2,400. Yeah, they're not a real big fan of that a lot of times. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So a lot of what you do and the value that you provide is with the client is to kind of check in. Okay, this is where we are right now. We're at 15,000 and you owe 2,400. You can usually compare to you like, hey, where were you last year? Because you know how it is with life. It's like it's all about expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you always want to have as part of your intake process like a copy of last year's tax return. I mean
Okay.
because you kind of see like, hey, if the person got $6,000 back last year, and and my computer says they owe 2,400, you know, well, what's the difference, right? Like we have to see like what's the difference from year to year.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But you just in terms of program usage, because I know when we were talking before that that is a major kind of part of, you know, feeling confident with the clients and knowing that the stuff that you're doing is done right. I think this video is going to be real helpful to you on that. But also it's something where it's just working through the process with the client. Like, hey, this is where we are right now. And a lot of times with a Schedule C, it's worth like we call it like dropping the anchor. So
Hmm.
you're not totally done with the tax return, but you've mentioned that okay, say right now we're at you owe 2,400.
Okay.
Now you got to be careful like who you say that to because sometimes people will just totally freak out, and again that comes back to kind of knowing what they're expecting. but but
Exactly.
but you can tell I've done this a couple times. But the when you like drop the anchor and you mention a number that maybe is an unpleasant number, it like resets an expectation that it's not going to be zero. Because remember, if you made money during the year as self-employed, is that you made money, right? You haven't paid any taxes. So
That's
everybody,
right.
yeah, everybody out here that's on a W-2, like they've already had a ton of taxes taken out of their checks, like every time and all that. So there has to be some kind of like, in order for you to have a productive long-term relationship with the client and not have them cause a bunch of problems, there has to have some understanding that, you haven't paid any taxes and you made money. So
Exactly.
yeah, so just kind of like dropping a number in there. And what that lets you do is once you drop the anchor is you come in and you can say, you know what though, I want to go through a few more things here just to make sure we have this 100% optimized. And so they
Right.
already have in their mind, oh, 2,400. So if you can get them down from that point, then you have a chance to have like close out the tax return then. Have a good understanding between the client that when you make money, you have to, there's some taxes that usually are due. Hey, if we can get you to zero tax, like if you have dependents or so, you have earned income credit or something like that, then hey, by all means, that's what we're here to do. But just having an understanding with the client is a really big deal when like for you, you want to have long-term relationships with the clients. That's where all the money of this business is always in long-term. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so just getting on the same page with the client, that little technique of dropping the anchor, and then you could come back in here and say, let's address the car expense. So Control N. I feel like maybe we could do a little bit better. Let me do some work on this. Okay, you drive Toyota. I don't know if that's the right spelling or not. And date,
Yeah.
place, and service. Okay, so
Okay.
here, I'm gonna fill out. Okay, own this vehicle. You don't really want to force usually either actual or standard because you can actually compare the two and it'll choose, like the tax program will choose um, whichever is better. So let's say original cost of the car was 12,500. Okay, total vehicle mileage. This is going to be your business miles.
Hmm.
Okay, and why didn't that? Second. Hmm.
Now, what happened usually when you run into a customer that, like how you went there and you put the mileage in,
Hmm.
and then when they ask how much mileage they use as far as with the business, what happens when they really don't know? I mean, they can give you the mileage they use, but they don't know if they're using that vehicle for daily use, besides business use.
Hmm.
What happens, when they can't give an exact mileage, that they use?
Yeah, exactly. And that happens all the time, especially with smaller Schedule C. So that's why we have these resources in here for you to explain to the person, because especially
Okay.
if they're going to do it for multiple years, you want to, like, to protect yourself, but also to help them be informed. You
Hmm.
want to just say, you know what, that's a great question. We get that question all the time. That's why we have this. You mind if I send you a quick email? It's going to explain exactly what you need.
Okay. Okay.
Now, being that this is real life and it's tax season, and you know that the person uses the car for work, they maybe you got to figure out from there, do they have a regular route? Like, are they going from the house to the office every day? If so, how far is that? How many days per week do you work? Um,
Okay.
do you go to other clients' house? Or where do your clients mostly live locally? So you can kind of reconstruct that. And one things that the IRS will accept generally is not the most ideal record keeping, but if the person has like a calendar where they
Hmm.
have addresses of their appointment, or if they're just driving like a regular route. Some self-employed people, they're going to go to their salon every day. You know,
Okay.
and so you have to be careful, because it's like, you have to inform the client that, hey, these are the records that the IRS requires. And but also, if you know that the car is legitimately for work, and you're in a situation now where, like, you're either forced to pay to claim zero deduction, or kind of help the person be able to get to a legitimate amount, then I would certainly go with helping them get to a legitimate amount,
Okay.
if that makes sense. It's one of those things that you work through with the client, and you certainly have to inform them of what the record keeping is.
Exactly, because that, I had one client that came and he has a Lamo service, and he I guess the person who was preparing his taxes before, they never, I guess he never put it on there, so he was saying that he had this expense, that expense, but
Hmm.
he didn't have any receipts for the stuff he pretty like gasoline and things of that nature,
Hmm.
and supplies and material and stuff that he bought, to be able to cut grass. He didn't have anything. So
Right.
I mean, even though I know him personally that he does do this, but he didn't have anything.
Yeah, and that's something where it's an education process with the person as to
Mhm.
that, hey, this is what's needed. And I talked at the beginning of this video about, like, people like that, or even self-employed generally. You're self-employed, is that we
Mhm.
want to simplify, like, our existence as much as possible when it comes to taxes and accounting, because we have so much on our hands to even just take care of our customers, or just do this whole thing, that being able to
Exactly.
provide to the person, like what's a realistic way that person's going to be able to keep track of their records. You have to think to
Exactly.
yourself, you're a professional, and that's a great opportunity for you, because that's a problem for the person. Like, that is a legitimate problem, but you have to give them a way to where it's solvable.
Exactly.
Yeah, so not everybody's going to be like, hey, oh yeah, let's get you set up on QuickBooks, and then you're going to do X, Y, and the person's going to, they might be into it for that 10 minutes you're talking about it, but they're not going to do it. So
Yeah, I mentioned that to him. I did mention that. So I just told him, if he just, maybe just go the old-fashioned way and do the shoebox, I'll be
exactly,
willing to help.
perfect. That's an opportunity for you. If you say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to make you, like we used to do for that type of client, which since we had a lot of Latino clients that are self-employed, that was very common, like exactly what you just said. And so
Okay.
we would just make them an accordion folder, and
Mhm.
and make a, we talked about here. This is a resource that I'm getting you based on the type of work the person does. So you sit down, you look at, like, hey, what's your expenses that you're going to have, based on your type of work, right? And you
Oh, okay.
you create categories, and you just attach those to the accordion folder, the main expense types, and you say, hey, Jim, when you get this type of expense, could you put it in this folder? And even if not, I'll leave you like a even if you're not even going to do that, just take and let's leave you a miscellaneous area, and like stuff it in there, and I'll organize it for you. So at the end of each month, we would have the person come in, turn in their existing one, and we would make them a duplicate of the same accordion folder, and we would just trade it out.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so something like that. Like some people are more tactile, they want to touch, they want to key. Other people, maybe they're have a type of business, Tia, where they have a lot of like digital expenses, so they're buying things online. You can create like a folder in your Gmail that can be
Okay.
expenses, and so you just say, hey, if you get an expense, you just check the box, add it to that folder.
Okay. Okay.
So just meeting the person where they are, that's a big part, as you know, from already doing taxes, is just meeting the person where they are. You can't, some people are not going to do a big elaborate thing, but some people, if you just tell them straight up, like, uh, you know, I'm going to do this for you. And I can say, this is important to you, and here's why it's important. Here's why it's important. Here's how much money you're not getting by not claiming this car expense. You're paying 2,000 more, or you're exposing yourself to huge problems. I don't want you to be in that position. I want to make sure that you pay the least allowable, but that you're taken care of. You could sleep easy at night. You kind of hit on those little, hot buttons, and then as long as you have a solution, because most people, like, say you're self-employed, right? What happens? Somebody brings
Mhm.
a problem and they don't have a solution. It's just like, I'm just keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that's what I tell
Exactly.
some of my teammates is like, don't even, if you come talk to me, just if you're just bringing a problem, let's just not even have a conversation, because it's not,
Exactly.
what's the point? So like whatever
Exactly.
you're saying, what's the proposed solution? And that's the thing that really good tax preparers, I think you're already good at what you do, especially on the relationship side. I can tell just by talking to you a couple times. But really good pros, they take it to that next level of meeting the person where they are, having a solution that actually that can actually be implemented. And so I think you'll really be good at that. And these Schedule C taxpayers, they're the ones, Tia, that they're not gonna go do TurboTax
Exactly.
generally. And so this is a big thing for you. I talked about if you're already noticing that you're getting calls from hairstylists,
Yes.
that's a great niche market, because hairstylists, they all talk to each other. They're all in the same space. They all go to pretty much to the same people.
Yes.
Yeah, so you kind of build up over time. You drop this by, I talked about this at the beginning of the video. This can be a marketing thing too. Hey, I was able to help out a couple people here at the shop. I want to just drop by these listed deductions. We have a lot of times where, maybe our hairstylist clients don't know what is deductible, or, how to kind of what the categories are. So I just want to drop this by. If anybody else needs help, here's my contact info. You can edit this stuff out, put the money tree, stuff there.
Okay.
So bottom line, when you come through here and you are on your second pass, let's say, like you've already dropped the anchor, you owe 2,400, and you come in here and whatever it might be, maybe it's something where, you said you're buying some supplies on a credit card. Are you carrying a balance? Yes. Okay. Maybe there's more interest there that you can get. That's business related interest. Let's talk about some of the other expenses. You had some, uh, you know, uh, let's say, just for the simple part of it, that it's car expense, and we're able to get that. I think it's like 54 cents a mile or something. So
Mhm.
you maybe arrive at that. You got to do a little bit of work on it in terms of the software. I don't want this video to be like 18 hours long. So
Okay.
what about home? Like, are you storing any of your stuff at your house? You storing any of your supplies? So there's potential storage that the
Okay.
person may have, or maybe they're doing like their record keeping at the house. So there's some element of storage of goods, storage of supplies. Let's say that's 1,200 bucks. I don't know how that jumped up that much, but or jump down.
Okay.
I'm like, man, that's a 1200, 1200. Oh, there, that's what it's doing. So that's where the car expense is going on to depreciation because it's seeing that
Okay.
it's choosing, Tia, between actual expenses, and actual expenses includes depreciation. So let's say that we wanted to force the standard mileage rate, and let's see if that, okay, yeah, so there it is.
Okay.
So this is your car expense. So you want to, you want to meet the person where they're at, especially with the car expense, but I think it's very important to like take it a step further and provide them this, because you don't ever want to be in a position where it's like, well, you told me it was XYZ.
Exactly.
You told me like this is fine. It's very nice to document things like over email, and we make it super easy just because we've seen this so many times where, hey, somebody has a question about home office, which happens all the time. Somebody has a question about vehicle expense. Somebody has a question about business meals, entertainment. Those
Hmm.
are the three ones that people always have questions about. So all you got to do, put it in your own voice or whatnot, like maybe make your own, version that's like suits you, or you customize it to the
Hmm.
type of client. But to be able to just cut and paste it and then keep a record of it, you have it in your email that you sent this person, is going to be very helpful. And you can see that the impact that it makes from adding, these aren't unreasonable deductions. And just this, well, actually, car expense would be duplicated, so I'm going to take that out. These aren't things that are, outrageous or whatnot, or totally out, out of left field, but you can see that it cuts the tax pretty much in half.
Exactly.
Okay, and so that's basically how to fill out a Schedule C. The kind of when we got disconnected on the front end of the video, I have the kind of the start of it. And
Okay.
yeah, so you'll get to review that. But hopefully this is helpful. I want to get what else for Schedule C is, and like I said, you will see the first part of the video, which probably will answer some of the, like, how do you intake the client's information type questions. But for just while I have you here on this meeting, what other questions do you have specifically about Schedule C?
My only thing was just I guess um pretty much was what would the IRS look for as far as what I needed, which is I know you stated that you had to have it on one of the documents, but I was just kind of like, what all would they look for that I need to keep, because I don't want to get in trouble, for something that I need to request from the client. So
Exactly.
that was my main issue and I was just trying to learn how to work my way around around the system because it was, like I've called the customer service line or tech support, for little things that I didn't know, like where does the IP pin go? So I was just like trying whatever I couldn't Google to find, or when I
Right.
called them, one young lady was like, "Well, you know what? That's a good thing because I don't even know, So I
Right.
ended up Googling and I ended up finding, where it goes. But it was just kind of funny because I'm like kind of like trying to maneuver around to learn
Sure.
the system.
Sure.
Everything goes. So that was the only thing. And then also I was planning on, okay, well, of course using the system to file my own taxes.
Mhm.
Now, when I went through the little steps to try to do everything,
Mhm.
um, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna put on here the paid prepared, but then I'll put on there the self. So I was like, okay, I hope I'm doing everything right.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, but you
That's
got
my
you got to keep you got to keep in mind, Tia, that like everything that you just said right there. I was talking about this with another customer too. Is like that's just like normal, So I think
okay.
that's a big part of like feel like, hey, I got to learn how, because yeah, this is a tough job. I mean, you have your client relationships, so that's tough enough to
Hmm.
navigate as it is. Then you're supposed to actually know how to do know like tax law. and not only know
Yes.
it, but like be able to explain it to other people and how they can
Yes.
understand it. And then you got to learn how to use a pretty complex software program.
Yes.
So you got your work cut out for you. I think the solution there is just to do the practice tax returns. I could share you some more practice
Mhm.
tax returns files, and just even if they're not perfect, like it doesn't have all the information, just like and it feels like kind of stupid. You're like but it's practice is practice, and with a software especially, just knowing the big picture stuff that like, hey, if this is a gray box, that means that it's pulling from some other source.
Okay.
So I need to find out like what that source is and drill down to where like this is coming from, right? Your client data screen.
Dana. Exactly.
Yeah, so you kind of know that. You'll start to figure your way around pretty quick. And especially if you just dedicate yourself to doing more practice tax returns. And I think also reaching out, like saying, hey, Andy, let's do a training session on XYZ. I mean, like we're committed to doing that. I think these video training sessions, especially if you record them, can be very, very helpful. And it helps me learn the software too. So it's mutually beneficial. And I think just doing practice tax returns, yeah, doing real returns, and if you get stuck
Hmm.
on technical side, that tech support, one of the reasons we paid all the money to get those people on our team,
Exactly.
take advantage of that. But if it's something more like it's like, hey, Andy, I'm not comfortable doing a Schedule C return. Let's just do an
Hmm.
hour training because if you're not comfortable with it, is chances are other people aren't either. And
Exactly.
that way we all learn together. So, but I think the point that you make, Tia, about when you're dealing with Schedule C filers, and this is going to be covered in the first part of the video, but maybe it might be a good way to conclude it as well as it's all about how you intake the client information because
Exactly.
you have to make it clear to the client that I'm getting this information from you.
Hmm.
Okay, that's exhibit A because if you don't have that understanding from the client, you're going to be in a position where they're just like just make it up, like just come in and you just make it how it is. And that's very, very dangerous with Schedule Cs because they're the most audited, I would say, like type of form. And so that's why
Exactly.
we, give you this here is what you really need. Like, so if somebody calls you and they say, I work as a hairstylist. I'm going to bring in all my receipts. Hold on a second here. What all your receipts is not really what I need. What I need is, you don't have to say it like that, but
Yeah.
what I need is your income that you earned, and then I need the total of each type of expense for the year.
Okay.
And they're probably at that point going to say, what are they going to say? I have no idea. So you're going to say, oh, you have no idea? No problem. We have a lot of clients that are, maybe new to the business or maybe their previous tax person didn't explain it in a way that made sense to them. Let me do this for you.
Exactly.
We created a customized list for hairstylists. And so would that be helpful to you if I send you a list of categories and then you look at your expenses and then
Oh
fill those
yes.
in?
Yes. That would be.
They love that. And so that's the thing of like, there's a problem. I don't know what the heck's going on, but there's actually a solution. Is that, hey, we have this here for
Exactly.
you. Let me send you this. Put your Money Tree logo here. Put your contact info here. Maybe put your Facebook page here. You're making it easy for that person, Tia. And then most importantly is that you're making it easier for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So you'll catch a lot of that at the front of the video, but I think that's a great point that you make is that it reduces your anxiety when you have a process for intaking the information and getting eye to eye with the client and saying that, hey, we're working on your tax return. I got my own tax return to file. That's when I sign the tax return saying, this information is true, correct, and complete. This is your return that you need to be able to sign that. And so let's get on the same page. How do we do
Exactly.
this is going to be in a way that works for you. I'm not going to ask you to, do some rocket science type of thing, but let's get to a situation where I'm getting information from you and I'm getting you the best, possible result. And I would say too, when you find a good niche like
Hmm.
hairstylists,
Hmm.
really pursue that niche because that is the market, like the local market is going to tell you, this is what we need from you.
Exactly. But like I say, it was quite a few. It probably was like four of them.
Yep.
But, my main thing is, I was just like, okay, what all do they need to bring in? See, this is my whole thing. This because I mean, with the big change that the IRS have going on, right now with the PATH Act,
Hmm.
my main thing is it okay for them to, instead of bring receipts in, if they bring a paper in with all the, with everything documented, is that still, good enough?
Yes.
That's my main thing, and I think that's what kind of makes me uncomfortable because I don't know.
Yes, that is good enough. So keep in mind for ethics. So ethics for tax preparers is you can rely on information furnished by the client, so given to you by the client, in good faith. So if somebody brings in something and it says like, I made $2,000 and I spent 40,000 on supplies, it's not really real. It's not in good faith, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
you don't have an obligation. Like it's not our job to audit the person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you kind of like have that balance is that if I bring you in, if I'm self-employed and I bring you in this and it's filled out, so you could share the person, share it to the person. Hey, this is what I really need to get to. If you don't have it perfect or whatever, like just get the records that you have, do this for me. This would make it better, easier for me, and I can give you the best pricing. If you go through and fill this out, you don't need to say like, I don't believe that you had 2,000 in supplies. Let me see all your
Okay.
receipts.
Okay.
That's not your job. Now, if it doesn't make sense, then it is, there is a due diligence factor. But in terms of intaking the information to you, use
Mm-hmm.
these resources and say, this is what I really need. Is I don't need to review all your receipts. That's great if you have them. That's really great. What we really need to arrive at is we need to arrive at the total for each, expense category. And so we have a way to do that. Can I send you that right now? And
Okay.
if you're able to bring that into me, that's going to help with the efficiency. It's going to help with making sure you get every benefit. And then keep your receipts certainly. But what you really need to get is these two things are the main things that will help you out with that.
Okay. I think that really will.